Hello, I wanted to give us an opportunity to kind of go over some of the resources that I've asked you to download and print so that you have these things at your fingertips when you're doing some lesson planning, but also when you're going through all the other pieces of this module of the lesson planning for your final project. So I've printed them out myself, and so right now I have this. This is the National Art Standards, and these are what I might quote-unquote call the old National Art Standards. They've since come out with new ones to go with National Core Art Standards. But I like to have these handy as an integrator of the arts because they are quite helpful. So there are 4 pages of them. There's dance, music, theater, and visual art. And like I said, I like these because I like the wording of them, and they're easy to adapt to whatever you might be doing in your lesson. For example, for the visual arts one, I often go to the first standard, which states students will demonstrate knowledge of the methods, materials, and techniques unique to the visual arts. So if I want a lesson to focus on shading, if I'm asking students to draw an illustration of a character in a book, and I want them to really take into perspective how to use pencils to shade and really make facial features come alive, or if I want to do some have them look at elements and principles of design with proportions and ratio of a human body on a piece of paper, I might go right to those as my my standards for my arts within my lesson. For dance, you know, a lot of times I'll use the second one, the choreography. Students will create movement compositions based on choreographic principles, processes, and forms. And again, that is for when they are, like I might have my students get together and create a little dance that shows the growth of a seed into a plant. And so when they're choreographing that, they're taking into consideration some of the dance principles that we've gone over and I've taught them. Remember, when you are an integrator of the arts into your content area, you're not taking the place of the art teacher. So you're kind of going by what you know. I'm a firm believer in you using your own common sense and your experiences to really build upon what you know about the arts. Maybe you do some extra research. Maybe you ask questions of other arts teachers or people that you know are into these arts that you want to integrate, and then go from there and utilize these standards to help guide you. Along those lines, this paper is something that I always keep in my lesson plan book for the year. I make a new copy every year and put it into my lesson plan folder or binder. And this is great because it talks about the 4 main art forms that standards have been written for, and then it gives you some of these key words that can really help your brain to spark with an idea. For example, with theater, it says the elements for theater are character, plot, setting, conflict, dialogue, and theme. And of course, that is key when you're talking about literature. It tells you acting techniques, and it just clues you in with some key words, you know, movement, voice, character development, and improvisation. So if I'm going to give a little lesson in how I want students to portray a character or an object for part of the standard that I want from my lesson, I'm going to take into consideration, you know, how their body is moving through space and how they're moving in reaction to another character that they're working with, and how they're using their voice. So these words are just nice little triggers for you to develop your standard that you're trying to go after for the art form. Then it brings me to what are the new National Core Arts Standards, and that's this paper right here. This is really a nice, attractive way to redesign the standards just like they've done with the Common Core. Only this is for the arts. And they've really divided it. How they've organized it is they've divided it first into 4 main topics or categories of how we process through the arts. So there's creating, there's performing, and that could be performing as in theater, as in music, and as in dance. It can be presenting, as in presenting your visual artwork, and it can also be producing. So it's really starting to also talk about media arts, which is another great way to think of our art standards. Then there's responding to art and connecting with art. So all of these are things that we do with art, these 4 categories, and then from there they have the anchor standards. And the anchor standards are on this paper. So basically, the way that I kind of look at the anchor standards is how they go through the process of doing one of those 4 things. So if I want my students to be creating a piece of art as part of my art standards for my lesson, I might look at the anchor standard 1 or 2 or 3. Generating and conceptualizing the idea for the work, organizing and developing the artistic ideas and work, and then refining and completing artistic work. Now, if this is something that really interests you, you can go online to the National Core Art Standards.org and really dive into all the standards that are underneath all of these categories. And that in and of itself is really its own course. So I want you to think of these as just dabbling in the standards and utilizing them in a way that's purposeful for you in order to do the integration. Of course, if you're collaborating with an arts teacher or an artist of some sort, then there's a whole new ballgame, and you can really dig deep into the standards and go grade level by grade level and see what it is that they might be doing in the classroom, in the arts or the music or the theater classroom, and work with that teacher and really develop something. But the way that I'm approaching this for the most part is that you are doing the integration yourself with the assistance of maybe someone's knowledge or just your own. Now, as far as assessment goes, I have 2 resources here that I've asked you to download and print. The first one is an assessment toolkit, and this comes from Susan Riley over at Education Closet. She's got a lot of great resources for assessment, and I'll be referring to her and linking our Moodle site to her quite a bit when you get into the assessment part of the module on Moodle. One thing I do want to mention, and this will be echoed when you go through all of those other resources online, is that you must remember when you are assessing, which is something important that you do need to do, you are thinking of it in 2 ways. You're assessing the actual standard, so it's going to kind of mirror what the standard is and assessing that. And the other thing is to consider that you are just assessing what the standard is that you've put in place. You're not evaluating it. You're not the arts teacher. You're not the music teacher. You're not making a judgment call on the student's art form. You're just assessing whether or not they've completed the standard to your specifications. So if you did something, an art standard as simple as using 3 different types of media on their illustration, then you just need to assess, did they do that or not? So it could be a simple checklist or a score of 1, 2, 3 of whether or not they did that. But here are some other ideas for assessments. It goes from very informal, formative assessments, the things that, thumbs up, thumbs down, just your own observation, a discussion you might have. You might take some anecdotal notes, to things like the multiple choice, true or false, a fill in the blank. It could be something that is performance-based or long-term. So this is kind of a nice piece of paper to look through and see what might work for you. And when you, like I've said before, when you're going through all of the online resources that I've put together for you for this course, there'll be lots and lots of ideas that you might be like a magnet too. So you'll definitely have some ideas once you go through that. And finally, this is another thing from Education Closet, and it's a rubric. It's a ready-made rubric, which can actually be quite helpful. So if you wanted to use a rubric for an assessment, one of these might actually work for you. For example, if you look at the skills, so you're do the key, and these are very in general too, so you can use them for any art form, which is really great. So let's say that you're working on skills. If they are achieving only a 1, that means that their work that they've done for you demonstrates limited knowledge of key elements and does not convey specific meaning. In other words, they didn't really achieve the standard that you had wanted them to. And that can go all the way up to a 5, where the student demonstrates their work in a wide range of relevant knowledge, uses sophisticated investigations, critical analysis, and their use of key elements are specific and accurate. So that would obviously be, the highest score. And you can go down from there. There's a 3 that's defined there as well. And these are available for you to copy, cut out, use, circle for each and every one of your students. Another one to look at that's very simple to understand how this rubric can work for you is the presentation one, where the 1 would mean that the piece is choppy, it's incomplete or awkward. It does not clearly demonstrate the meaning of the topic, and it can go as far as a 5. The piece is constructed in a way that underscores and enhances the meaning of the topic through purposeful use of key elements. So if you're thinking about that dance that they developed from a seed to a full-grown plant, if they have really shown their understanding of the concept, but really the understanding of the different levels of the movement, and utilize space and energy and time really well, then they might get that 5. And just to even, to round everything out, the 3 for presentation, parts of the piece invite expressive performance or presentation. Others may be stiff or awkward or choppy. So that medium middle ground. So this can be very helpful for you. And you can even, like I said, copy, cut, and use it for all your students and circle as needed. So these are the resources that I've provided for you to copy and have available for yourself as you're working through your lesson plans. As always, if you need to contact me, you know where to find me. This is Elizabeth, and I will be working with you again soon, I'm sure. Have a good one.